Live. Hello there, and welcome to day 11 of Freedom from Anxiety in Uncertain Times. And I'm Jan Hart, and you're very welcome. Bit of a dark day out there today. I'm looking at myself. I've only been drowned 3 times already today, so excuse the appearance. Probably a bit dark on the camera as well, because it's just one of those rainy days out there. So anyway. Today I was going to speak about where we come from and how that matters. But I've had a question in and I do want to address it, and it'll probably take me 10 minutes to do that, so I'll try and weave the two together maybe, and we'll see how that goes. So if you're here, say hello, let me know that you're here, and if you have any comments on what you're hearing today, I'd love to hear that too. So Rose is here. Hi, Rose. Thank you. Rose says I look fabulous. Thanks, Rose. Feeling a bit damp, but thanks for that. Okay, so the question that I got is, it's a big question, and I'm really glad that it was asked. So now I'm going to keep it anonymous, so if the person is listening, please don't worry, I'm not going to mention your name. And it says, I started to follow your page, excuse me, and she says somebody recommended it to her. And it says, I wonder if you could discuss a very distressing issue that my daughter and family are going through. She is being bullied badly, psychologically, nothing physical, by who used to be her best friend. We have spoken to as well as kept an email record with the school several times, and they won't even call the girl or her parents into chat, as we have no proof. But she gave my daughter, seeing a counsellor, I think it says, we're at our wits' end. She's now also starting on the younger sister recently in first year. We asked to make an official complaint to the Board of Management, but it just got followed up by a call saying they will keep an eye and can't do anything unless she's caught. Also, a lot goes on the bus on the way home. My daughter has moved downstairs nearer the driver, and the bus company have been informed. Any advice would be appreciated, as some other parent may also know what I should do. And please, if I could stay anonymous. So yes, of course you can stay anonymous, that's absolutely fine. I see Catherine's here. Hi, Catherine. Okay, so there's a lot in that. And I suppose the first thing that I'd like to say is, I'm sorry to hear that you and your daughters and your family are in that space. It's not necessarily it's not a nice place to find yourself. Now, you also mentioned in your message that you had started listening to these calls yesterday, and yesterday was day 10, so I might invite you to maybe go back and look at some of the earlier videos where we actually kind of set the scene for what we're doing here. And just to recap really quickly, what we're looking at here is how the human system works perfectly, and how we're always resourced to be able to respond to anything that life throws at us. And I suppose the really big message that I'm trying to get out there to give hope to people is that we can have peace of mind regardless of what's going on around us. And I know that's probably going to sound like something that you don't want to hear if you only started listening yesterday. You're looking for advice, and I can't tell you what to do, because how do I know what's best for you and your daughter? I don't know you. But what I do know for sure is that both you and your daughters and everybody else in the world has the ability to respond to what's ever going on in the moment. So I think that's what I'm going to talk about. So I just ask you to maybe keep an open mind. You might have some reactions to what I'm saying, and if you do, that's absolutely fine. I'm not asking you to believe anything I say, but maybe to just take it away and do a little self-inquiry and see, does it make any sense when you take it away and look at it for yourself. So I suppose the first thing that I would say to you is that I hear in your message everything that you're feeling and thinking about what's going on with your 2 daughters, and your older daughter in particular. And I suppose what I see is that your thinking about what they're going through is similar to their thinking about whatever is causing them to feel upset. Now, I don't know what they're feeling because you haven't told me. So if they're coming to you and expressing that they're being bullied and you're trying to take action around that, then it kind of says to me that there's some insecure thinking going on, or some worrying type of thinking, or anxious thinking happening. So your children are having some insecure thinking about what's happening in the circumstances and what's being said to them and what's happening on the bus and happening in school. And you're also having some insecure thinking about that. So, and that's perfectly normal, perfectly normal. And I do want to say to you that I can resonate with what you're saying, because one of my own children was bullied. There was a lot of bullying going on in the primary school and in the secondary school. And similar to yourself, in the primary school situation, the bullying was happening outside the school gates. And it would take the form of my son would come out of school, and as soon as he'd walk through the gates of the school, there would be a gang of boys would make a circle around him. And on it went. And they'd take his stuff and throw it away, and all this kind of carry on. And we had a similar experience, my husband and I. We were very worried, and this was long before I ever came into this space. And the school wouldn't act because it wasn't on the school grounds. And in secondary school it was similar as well, because a lot was happening at lunchtime when they left the school grounds in secondary school to go out and get a bite to eat at lunchtime, and on the bus. And it got to a point where either my husband or I would actually drive my son to school and try and get a lift home for him as well if we could, just to try and spare him that. And I suppose that's a natural parent type of reactions. We want to protect our children. We don't want to have them experience things that are unpleasant, and we want to protect them, I suppose, from having to learn the lessons that maybe we learned ourselves. And we hate seeing our children upset or in any kind of trauma. So I suppose what I would say to you is, if you can look at this for what's going on for you, and maybe if you're coming onto these calls on a day, make them a gift for yourself. Because what's really important in this type of a situation is the health of the helper. And as I said a few minutes ago, we're looking to wellness and well-being and what's healthy and constant and always working within us. So that's this direction. And when we're not looking at the detail or the content of everything that's going on, because that's looking in this direction. And when I read all the details of your email, I see the words, and they're all talking about what's going on over here, what's actually happening, the content. And that's fine, that's okay. But what I'm pointing to you in this direction is what's before all of the thinking. That space inside us that's constant, that's never changing, that's always well. And that no matter what people, circumstances, events, situations come into our lives, that part of us remains whole, undamaged, undented. It can't be hurt in any way, and we remain whole. And when I said I was going to talk about where we come from, I guess that's what I meant. We can come from a place in our heads where we get caught up in the content of what's going on, or we can come from a deeper place within us. So when we come from up here, we get caught up in all the busy thinking, everything that we see in our head, everything that's wrong, all the problems, all the issues. Whereas when we're looking in this direction, we're not coming from the place of thought. We're coming from the place of non-thought. We're coming from the space before thought, beyond thought, the essence of who we are. And when we come from that place, we come from love and understanding and compassion for ourselves and compassion for others. When we come from here, we're looking at the behaviours. They shouldn't have said this, they shouldn't have done that, that's not right, you can't treat people like that. You know, it's psychological damage, physical damage, or not physical damage. Um, that's not coming from a deeper place. And that's okay, because we're human and we all do this. And it's very natural as well. So I'm going to invite you to kind of take a step back a little bit for yourself and maybe just look at what's going on for you and look at all of the thinking that you're having about this and the feelings that that thinking is creating in your body. Because right now, what I'm seeing in your message is that it looks to you like you're not okay and your family isn't okay and you're at your wits' ends because of the circumstances that your daughter is dealing with. And what I'm pointing to is that regardless of the circumstances, you can still have peace of mind. Regardless of what happens with your children, any of your children, no matter how they mess up or what they get involved with or get caught up in, good or bad in your mind, that you're still healthy and you're still well beyond all of that. And I suppose to give you an example, I was coaching a girl last year, end of last year, and her daughter had been born. She had a healthy pregnancy, and her daughter had brain injury due to birthing problems. And as a result, she never learned to walk or talk or do all the things that a normal child does. So she was non-verbal, non-physical, and you know, when I was working with this girl, she was telling me about how in the early years they were so upset and so up in their heads and, you know, trying to fix it all, and that at some point along the way, they actually noticed that that child, who was their third child, was actually bringing a lot of peace and love and well-being into their family. Because that child didn't have the rational mind working in the same way that the rest of us do. And that little girl was in touch with this space that I talk about, our true nature, our essence. And because that little girl was coming from that place, she was always happy and she was always peaceful and she was always smiling. And the family took great comfort from that. And that little girl pointed them back to their own well-being. So even in a scenario like that, the family was able to see through the challenges that their little girl was going through that they were actually all okay. And the reason she came for coaching was her little girl had died. She was 17 and she had passed away. And it was so interesting because in my head, my thinking about this before I met this lady was, oh my God, she's going to be in an awful state. You know, she's after losing her 17-year-old daughter. I couldn't even imagine how awful that must be. But the person that showed up in front of me was the most beautiful, peaceful, loving soul, so in touch with her own well-being. And what she was actually looking for help with was trying to go back to work. So it turned out to be something completely different than I had imagined. And that just points back to the fact that we're all living in separate realities. So if you're worried about your children, and this isn't just for the lady that came in, if you're worried about your children, then that's you, that's not them. And the invitation here is to just maybe find that acceptance that that's what's going on for you. And because if you show up to your daughter when she's suffering or having anxiety or worried or stressed about what's happening in her world, when you show up and meet her with the same energy, then that's sending the message that this is big, this is important, this is something that we need to act on, this is not right, this is something that we need to do something about. Whereas when you're grounded in your own well-being and you see that, yes, I'm caught up in my thinking about this situation, that it's not the situation itself, it's what's actually traveling through my mind about this situation that's causing me to be at my wit's end. When you really spot that for yourself, then you'll see your daughter very differently. Now, I'm going to give you a little example. Most people that I know have seen the picture of some stage of somebody holds up a picture to you and there's an old woman and there's a young woman. And, you know, usually a lot of people will see the old woman first. So when you see the old woman, you see somebody that you think is struggling, that's not doing very well, and she's all hunched over, and you know the chin is down in the chest, and you might be thinking, oh my goodness, what could I do to help this person? You know, or how could I be kind to this person because they look like they're struggling? But then you see the young face at some point, and as soon as you see the young face, you start thinking, oh my God. And you see the beauty and the gorgeousness of the young person and the vibrancy and the aliveness. And you stop carrying the bags for the old lady and you stop helping her across the road, and it doesn't look like somebody that's struggling anymore because you see the beauty in the young woman. So it's a little bit like that. When you really see that, you know, your thinking is creating the image of the old woman that's suffering in your own mind, and you do the self-inquiry and you see what's actually going on, then you start to see your own health and well-being show up. And you start to see yourself as the younger woman, and you start to see the gorgeousness and the aliveness and the vibrancy in yourself. And when you see that for yourself, and you show up to your daughter coming from that place, to bring us back to where we're coming from, you'll be coming from a place of being grounded in your own well-being, in your own health, in your own understanding about what's happening. And that's going to send a very different message to your daughter. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't anything to be done, that you don't need to contact the school, that your daughter doesn't need to see a counsellor or any of that stuff. What I would say about all of that, and even the fact that you got in touch with me, how I see that is, that's your own wisdom showing up. That's the wisdom in the perfection of the design of you as a human being. You spoke to somebody that was on these calls yesterday. You knew enough to do that. Your wisdom pointed you in the direction of speaking to somebody. And the person that you spoke to pointed you in this direction to come on these calls. And you showed up, and you came on the call yesterday. And it occurred to you to maybe to message. And you followed that inner guidance, and you sent a message. And here we are today talking about it. So when you see this for yourself, then you'll be able to see your own daughter's well-being. Because once you see how you're designed, and you see the perfection in your own well-being, and you see how your own wisdom is showing up even in this moment, then you'll also see the wisdom in your own daughter. And her wisdom is guiding her to come home and share it with you. Because that's what's occurring to her, and that's what's happening. So look for the wisdom in what's happening, and look for the wisdom in how it's unfolding. You know, you're also supporting your daughter practically. And again, I can't tell you what to do. I don't know you, I don't know your daughter, I'm not in the middle of the situation. My inner guidance is for me. You have your own. Your daughter has her own. And when we see it in ourselves, it's so much easier to see it in other people. But when we don't see it in ourselves, that's when we get focused on the behaviour. And I mentioned many days ago now that I used to be a behavioural coach for many years, and that's all about changing the behaviour. And that's what it sounds to me this message is about changing the behaviour. But behaviour is like the tip of the iceberg. So when you're seeing all this being played out between this girl and your daughter, you're seeing the behaviours, and you want the behaviours to change. And again, that's a perfectly human and normal response. And I suppose this conversation is going below the waterline. So what's below the waterline for you, for your daughters, both of them, for the girl that used to be the best friend? What's going on below the water is all of the stuff that we don't see. The fears, the insecure thinking, the worries, the needs, the interests, the positions that we take from the thinking that's in our head. That's what's going on below the water. And when we can engage at that level with a bit of love and understanding for ourselves and everybody else, then we tend to get better outcomes. So in this scenario, what I'm seeing ultimately is that you, the girl that wrote in, the mum, is having some insecure thinking about what's going on for your daughter because you don't want your daughter to be suffering. Your daughter herself is having some insecure thinking about what's showing up between her and the girl that used to be her best friend. the girl that used to be the best friend is probably also having some insecure thinking about something. I don't know what. Because I do a lot of work in the bullying space, in the workplace, rather than in families. And what I see is that regardless of who the players are and what sides they're on, it doesn't matter who's the perpetrator and who's the victim, and we love these labels. They're all human beings. And every single person that comes into that kind of a space is struggling with something. And the people that are labelled as, you know, the bullies are coming from a place of fear themselves. And that's hard to see. And it kind of takes us back to the premise that we're all doing the best we can, given how life looks to us. And that girl that used to be the best friend, life doesn't look great to her if she's behaving that way. And life doesn't look great to your daughter because she's on the receiving end of this. And she's viewing it and interpreting it as this girl is bullying her, and that's causing the anxiety. There's a lot of insecure thinking about it. And you as her mum want to protect her. So we're all the same, we're all human. And we all get caught up in this. I mean, we have a whole range of human emotion, but in my experience, people are generally coming from one of two places. We're coming from a place of fear, or we're coming from a place of love. Hi Sarah, it's lovely to see you. Tina's here. Kay, hi ladies. So when we get caught up in what's on our ticker tape and the insecure thinking that's passing through our awareness, then yeah, we get caught up in a thought storm and we're coming from a place of fear. When we come from our heart space and we come from our inner, deeper place before thought, that's when we're coming more from a place of love and openness. So I'm not sure if this is helping you or frustrating you or annoying you. Maybe you want to throw things at the screen at this point because I'm not giving you the advice. But really what I can do is just point you. So I hope this is helpful. Oh, Julie's here. Hi, Julie. So that's it for today, folks. Keep the questions coming. I'm really loving them. And as I say, I won't be giving advice, but I will constantly be pointing us to the perfection of the human design and how our wisdom plays out, even in these awful situations and even when we can't see it. So my invitation for today is look for how your wisdom is showing up, because it is. I know for sure it is. So let me just have a quick look here in the comments and see if anybody has anything to say. Hello, hello, hello. Julie says, love it, thank you. So great, very good. Alrighty ladies, I'm going to, and gents, if there's any gents here, I'm going to leave it there for today. And for any mums that are out there worrying, I would say, you know, just try and see this as your own insecure thinking, see what's going on and try and put a bit of space between it and come from that deeper place and just see what emerges. Okay, take care. Rita says thank you, so welcome. Talk to you all tomorrow. Love to all, bye-bye.